A lot of people get very emotional and attached to their businesses, and that's totally understand that. And I was with mine. But I always had in my mind, if somebody came along with enough money, I would sell. I had no problem with that at all.
How do you go about selling a business?
The first thing you need to do.
This is the We Built This Business podcast. I'm your host, Daniel O'Sullivan. This is the podcast for UK business owners to share their journey, their knowledge, their sacrifices, and their successes. Today, I'm pleased to have Phil Fraser on the We Built This Business podcast, talking about how he started the world's leading online bingo comparison website from his kitchen table to exiting that business in a multi-million-pound exit in 2018. Phil's current business is the Business Sounding Board. He's also host of the successful Leeds business podcast. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Daniel.
If we can go back to start with, to 2001, talking about the failed investment pitch that kind of springboarded Which Bingo. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, sure. So, turn of the century. That sounds like a long time ago. 2000. I was with William Hill. I launched their first ever online casino. While I was with William Hill, we came across online bingo as a concept. So the board asked me to do a presentation about it. Should we get into it? What the opportunities, all that sort of thing. And at the time, they said, "No, we don't want to do that." By the end of that year, I'd left, and at one point, somebody came up to me and said, "I want to get into online gaming. It's really exciting, man. What should I do?" And I said, "Online bingo is going to be the next big thing. You should get into that." And about 24 hours later, I thought, hang on, if I'm telling somebody else to do that, maybe I should do it. So I sort of took this presentation I'd done for William Hill, turned it into a pitch, sort of, real life Dragon's Den, and took it out for investment, and got absolutely zero backing whatsoever. So we got nothing from it. But what I'd done is I'd built a really basic website which listed all the bingo sites that were in the market at the time, which was only in the US. And on it, I'd put a really basic pop-up questionnaire to get some data for my presentation. So I could say, this is average age, this is average spend, this is how long they play for. So I sounded like an expert when I was doing my pitch. But what happened was some of those American bingo sites found my website and said, "Can we advertise on your website?" Now, my background pre-William Hill was selling ad space in print. So I thought, well, I've done it in print. How hard can it be to put an ad on a website? And that became the business. That's completely accidental, became the business. And there's also a small caveat to that, because at the time I was still looking for a proper job. And got offered a job in a digital agency, very nice job, car, salary, the whole lot. And I went in to see them on the Friday before the Monday and said, "I can't take this job. I've got this thing that might be happening." And that's my sliding doors moment in my career. If I'd have taken that job, it's a very nice job, the whole business wouldn't have happened. But nope, turned it down, went for it, and that became the business.
Incredible. So the monetization was nothing to do with actually running bingo events. It was all to do with the advertising from companies that were essentially running those bingo experiences online.
That's right. Yeah. So the online gaming business model, particularly through sites like ours, was affiliate. So it was in very simple terms, we had two business models. One was send us some money, we'll run an ad, or the affiliate model was we'll run your ad for free, but you give us a percentage of the amount of money people lose if we send them to you. And that's a model that works across online sports betting, casino, poker, bingo, the whole lot. And it's very similar to what people like TripAdvisor and Compare the Market do. So there were two business models within there, but yeah, it was basically an advertising model.
I'm really interested in the amount of money that people lose. Do you have an average fee? I know this was back in 2000.
Yeah.
Do you know how many, how much do people would lose on average when they go to these bingo sites?
The beauty of online bingo compared to, and I can get right into this, but it's very complicated. The beauty of online bingo is people play for fun and play a little bit regularly. So they might lose £50 a month on a regular basis, and we'd get maybe 10%, 15%, 20% of that from each player, from each site that we'd sent them to. Whereas somebody who does perhaps sports betting, they're playing to win. So it's like, right, I'm going to put a fiver on this team to win, and it's very black or white. Whereas bingo tends to be, I'm quite happy to lose 50 quid because I'm buying £50 worth of entertainment. So that was one of the beauties of online bingo, was its longevity, because we got lifetime revenue as well. So it was as long as they stayed playing at that website. But then if they then came back and then registered up via us on another website, we'd get a percentage of that money as well. So it's almost like the way a SaaS business might work. You're just taking a little slice on a regular basis. But then we also had paid advertising as well. So, if you want to be on this page for a month, we'll charge you £1,000, £1,500, whatever it might be. So it was lots of different business models.
I love that. And I guess the key was creating the content on which bingo that made people want to initially go there first, to then look at which bingo site you would go to. How did you go about doing that? Was it all done in-house, or did you outsource it?
So I'd learned very basic coding, so I'd put together a very basic website. As soon as we started generating any decent money, I took on freelancers, and then it took me 5 years to get our first members of staff. The main way we promoted it was SEO, and SEO at the time was A, was very basic, and B, wasn't that, we were very, very early to market. We were very lucky. We were very early to market. Online bingo didn't come to the UK until 2006. So the first 5 years was all in America. So it was quite easy to be quite high in the search rankings without a great deal of hard work. So that was the main way we promoted the business. And then it's based on content. And the USP we always had for the website was that we listed every single bingo site. So if a new bingo site came along, we'd put it on the website, even if we didn't have a commercial relationship with them, because we knew from a long-term basis that people would always keep coming back because they knew every single bingo site was going to be on our website. So we might, in the same way that we borrowed, one of the things we did very early on, and we did quite a lot of, was seeing who's best in market at doing something and then copying it and taking it. So in the same way that if you go on Amazon and it says, people also bought this product. So we'd have bingo sites that maybe we didn't have a commercial relationship with, that people would be looking at the review on, and then underneath it, so people also liked this one and this one and this one, which happen to be ones we do have a commercial relationship with. So there was a benefit in having a listing for a site that we didn't have any commercial relationship with, because it contributed to the USP.
Yeah. I'm really interested to know why did it take 5 years essentially for the UK to wake up to online bingo? So if it's going on in America, what was the delay?
There were probably 2 or 3 major delays. The first one was, if you think about the dot-com bubble burst in about 2001, 2002. So anything standalone online was a bit of a struggle. In the US, it was legally very grey. So it wasn't until 2006. It wasn't illegal, but it wasn't legal. And then the other thing that they haven't got in the US that we've got, obviously in the UK, we had 2 major land-based bingo players. It was Mecca and Gala. And as often happens in big, long-standing industries, they stick to what they know. So they're raking in money, bringing people into their bingo halls, which obviously have spent a lot of money doing. So they were like, oh, what's this new online thing over here? Very similar to the way the e-commerce took a long time to get under the skin of bricks and mortar businesses, because they were saying, well, no, we don't want to promote people online because we want them to come into our shops. Now it's multi-channel. So it took a while. And then one of the big Kickstarters was 2006. They changed the rules in the US and did make it illegal. So everybody basically decamped from the US to the UK. Then in 2008, I think it was, you had the smoking ban came in. So revenues in things like pubs and bingo halls, obviously, very broadly, it's a sort of down market, female, high smoking type of person. So they go outside. So then people think, well, all right, I don't want to go to bingo because I've got to stand outside in the rain and have a fag between games. I'd rather play online. So that, all those things sort of clicked together at the same time that made, UK online bingo starting sort of 2007, 2006, 7, 8 was real growth area. And by that stage, we'd created a UK version of our website. So whenever we decamped to the UK, we were already here waiting for them.
Yeah. So they were essentially worried about cannibalizing their own market. And in the end, the UK government forced them in a way, or forced their customers in a way online by not wanting them to go out. Because one of my earliest memories is my grandma. She was about 4 nights a week, she was out playing bingo. And it was a massive event, and then once a week, I think they would go to Swindon, which was the big gala event. And that was the one that they talked about, that we're going to the gala on Thursday. I never knew what they were on about. I knew they were playing bingo, but I didn't really know what they were. So I think thinking big, I know one of your challenges, you said you're not thinking big enough was something that, looking back, was it to do with fear of failure, or is it the fact that you didn't go for something that you now think in hindsight could have grown the business much bigger than it ended up being?
I think it was a mix of things. I think a lot of business owners struggle with self-doubt, whether it's self-doubt, imposter syndrome, or just generally, shit, I'm making this up as I go along. I hope nobody finds out that I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think some of it was that. Some of it was, I'm unlike when you have a job and you get a salary at the end of the month, it's like, oh, that's okay. When it's your own business, and again, it's a mindset thing. This house of cards could fall over any day. So, you've got to be careful and all that sort of thing. And I think some of it's also education and knowing that, you can be more aggressive. You can grow through M&A. You can buy out competitors. We probably could have invested a lot more in marketing once we had a pot of money rather than just sitting on it. So yeah, I think it's probably knowledge at the time of how to do it, but also that fear of, I want to keep this rainy day nest egg here just in case. Because even after 6, 7, 8 years of being successful, I don't know about other business owners, but you think, this house of cards could all fall down. You never know.
You know all the weak points, don't you? You're thinking, oh God, if that goes, if this goes, this is where I'm making all my money. If that changes, I can imagine it's definitely. And also hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? It's easy to look back and go, this is what I should have done. Yeah. Because, for me, I imagine you must have been thinking, well, let's set up our own bingo site.
Well, we ended up
run our own.
Yeah, so we ended up with a number of bits to it. So Which Bingo was that was the main website. It was very successful. We then set up a number of other similar but different comparison websites as well. Then we managed to get some software from a guy in the States. We ended up having a free bingo game, which again was a vehicle for advertising. And then what happened was, the online gaming industry created a very successful white label model, where in very, very simple terms, you had a piece of software in the middle that was basically playing the game. You could create a white label version of a bingo site that plugged into that game. So I could have Phil's bingo, you could have Daniel's bingo, you could have red bingo, pink bingo, whatever. They all look like standalone brands, but you're all playing as part of a bigger game. Now the benefit of that is you don't have to do anything at all. It's just a revenue generator. You're not organizing any software or anything like that. But also there's more people playing, so the pot's bigger because it's a rake game. So the more people play, the bigger the pot. So in the end, we had brands coming to us saying, do you want a white label version of our bingo site? So we said, yeah, okay. So we actually ended up with 7 or 8 different skins, as they were known, that just appeared on our directory that just looked like another website. So yes, we had our own bingo sites, but we weren't running a bingo game, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you find that people would sign up for one and then sign up for another and then sign up for another one, almost like, I wasn't lucky on that one, so I'm going to try another one?
Yeah,
that kind of philosophy, is that?
Yeah, you get a lot of that. So as bingo sites as the bingo market was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, there were lots of special offers and lots of new site special offers, free money, this, that, and the other. So people would jump around different sites. So you'd have a portfolio. Most bingo players would have a portfolio of sites they play at. So they might play at one until, I'm unlucky on that one, but I'll go to that one, I'll play a bit on that, and that one's got a special offer. So I think I mean, we did regular research on the market. I think people were averaging 8 or 9 sort of sites in their portfolio of where to play, which again fed it. If you think back to what I was saying about the affiliate marketing model, if people have signed up to 8 different sites via our, I mean, they may not have all signed up from us, but if they had, we've got 8 different places they play, 8 different places we get a slice of their money from. And you can see it, it adds up quite quickly. But as the market grew, there were lots of more competitors doing what we were doing. So it became a bit of a land grab.
Yeah. I can imagine it's an amazing model to have, like you say, because you can just see it extrapolating. And, often if you're a bingo player, you're a bingo player, aren't you? You don't often just go, right, that's it, I'm not playing it ever again. It's addictive.
Yeah.
And you like it.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned it in imposter syndrome. Now, I mean, I have it. Like you said, I'm sure every business owner has it. How did you particularly overcome imposter syndrome?
That's a really, really good question. It was almost, I think that the point where I started believing was, it was actually my brother-in-law, who also runs businesses as well, said to me, like I say, 8 or 9 years in, and I was like, oh, it might all fall apart. He says, look, you've been doing it right for 8 or 9 years now. You're obviously doing something right. It's not going to fall apart. And that just sort of made me go, yeah, you're probably right. And I think with the thing with imposter syndrome, and I did a webinar with one of the UK's experts on imposter syndrome, and there's lots of rubbish talked about it, but basically it's the gap between the skill set you believe you have and the skill set you believe you need for a role, and that gap in between. That's where the imposter syndrome comes in. But actually, if you look at it quite objectively and go, well, I can do this and I need to do that, how do I fill that gap? Is it training? Is it experience? Is it, maybe I don't have to do it. Maybe I get somebody else in to do it. So there's lots of ways of objectively getting over imposter syndrome. But I think the other way to look at it as well is actually it's a positive, because it means you're pushing yourself. It means you're doing stuff you're not comfortable doing. You're doing stuff that's expanding your skill set and expanding your experiences. So actually, almost if you haven't got imposter syndrome, maybe you're not pushing yourself hard enough, and maybe you're just sitting on your laurels.
I like that philosophy that it's a good place to be. As in, if you're not feeling like you're an imposter, you're probably not pushing hard enough. And I listened to one of your talks earlier, actually, and it was about, at one point you said you got bored.
Yep.
In the business.
Yep.
And was the next step for you to make sure that you were out of your comfort zone?
I think at that point, and this is not meant to sound arrogant, and it's, I think looking back, it's more about entrepreneurship and running businesses, is actually the fun and excitement I get is starting a business, growing a business, and being successful. When all the plates are spinning, this is a bit boring. It's successful. It sounds weird, but it's successful, therefore it's boring. Whereas if there's a bit of chaos going on, or there's a new project coming along, or there's a new idea or a new website, or, that's the exciting bit. So yeah, I got to the point where it wasn't challenging me because I had a team, everything was running fine, and that's, and actually we put the business up for sale. What we did in the end, we pulled it off the market right at the last minute, and plan B was always to get somebody else in to run it. And that then gave me a new challenge, because then I've got a number 2 in place who I have to motivate, I have to work on strategy with, somebody who's challenging me, somebody who's bringing in new ideas that make me think, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not sure I'd do it like that. That sort of stuff. So that was almost the thing that got me over the boredom thing. And that really, and again, that was another step change in the business, getting a number 2 in to actually run the business in effect for me. It took a while to do, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been there as well. I mean, we're currently on 6 brands that we're running, kind of different markets, each one, and 4 of them are growing, 2 of them are stable. And I think you just get to the point where you're like, oh, but what's next?
Yeah.
What's next? And it's easy place to be, but it's not, because at the same time you want that challenge, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like, I'm bored because all the plates are spinning. Where's the crisis? Where's the shiny new object? That was always a bit of my downfall, is that shiny new object syndrome.
I think it's the entrepreneur's curse.
Yeah,
isn't it,
absolutely.
Absolutely. I just wanted to dial back a bit on so when you took on a number two and they're saying to you, I reckon we do it like this, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. How did you learn to either go with them or, to let them delegate and let them kind of bring their own ideas that you wouldn't necessarily implement?
Yeah, I think one of the key lessons I learned over my career was the beauty and the value of delegation. And it was interesting when we went through the interview process. The guy who got the job said to me in one of the interviews, he said, "Are you ready to let go?" Like, he didn't want me to sit there and go, right, today, Simon, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, then come back to me when you're finished. He challenged me. And it was interesting because we had a team of, I think it's about 12 of us, and you've probably got something very similar where most of the team can come and knock on your office door and go, "Hey, Daniel, I've got this idea, or I've got this problem," or whatever. And the first time somebody knocked on my door and said, "Phil, I've got a problem," I said, "Go and speak to Simon." And you could see them going, "Shit." And you've got to sell this number two to your team as well as you have to sell it to yourself. And you just have to go, "Look, I wouldn't do it like that." And, you probably get it wrong, but they've got to go through that learning process of getting it wrong to learn, right? It's no benefit of me saying, "Do it this way," and they do it. They don't learn anything. And also, one of the reasons I picked the guy I picked was he was from a digital background, but not online gaming. So he came at it from a completely different angle. And, as with any business, when you start up, you put systems and processes in place. And then somebody comes in after, he was about 8, maybe 10, 11, 12 years, going, "Why'd you do it like that? This is the way people do things now. And you should be doing this." And, that person's not good enough. And I was, sort of comfortable with them because they've been the team for a few years and they're doing okay. He comes in and goes, "We need to get rid of, John or Bill or Mary or something." So it really, reignited the whole team and the whole business. But yeah, some of it's scary because you have to sit back and go, "Oh, don't touch that, you'll break it."
Yeah, I love that part where you say, why are you doing it like this? And it's like, because this the way we've always been doing it.
Which is completely the wrong answer. And clients say that to me as well. And this is the beauty of having a coach or a mentor or somebody on the outside looking at you and going, "Daniel, why did you do it like that?" And the answer is usually, "We've always done it like that," or "We did it like that at the last place I worked at, so I just copied it." Rather than, actually, let's think about doing this a slightly better way.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And, the letting go, I think, is probably one of the hardest things as a business owner that you can do, because, like you said, you have your own way of doing things. It's worked, and then someone comes and says, "We're doing something completely different," and you've always been in charge, and you're like, "Oh, that's hard to change." But yeah, if you don't, you never get out of the business, do you?
Yeah, and we'll talk about exit in a while, but somebody there's a friend of mine who's a business sales agent, and he says you've got to be able to do your business has got to be able to run without you for it to be sellable. And to test that is you go away on holiday for 2 weeks, don't take your phone, don't take your laptop, and if the business is still running when you come back, you have a sellable business. If it all falls apart because everyone needs to speak to you and get approval and things need checking off, it's not a sellable business. So yeah, that was put in the back of my mind. That was, again, one of those things that was driving this was, look, I have to, if at any point I want to sell, I have to get out of the business. And the best way to do that is to put somebody else in.
Yeah. And when did you get to that kind of eureka moment when you're like, this business is now ready to be sold?
I think I'd always, in the back of my mind, a lot of people get very emotional and attached to their businesses, and that's totally understand that, and I was with mine. But I always had in my mind, if somebody came along with enough money, I would sell. I had no problem with that at all. But then on the other side of it was, if nobody comes and buys it, absolutely fine. It's a very profitable business. It's churning out money. I've now got, at that point, I've now got a team in place. I've got number two in place. They're running it. Why would I sell it? So it'd have to, we got to, and the best place to sell, the best position to be in to sell a business is when you don't want to sell or you don't need to sell. Because you can then go, "No, it's not enough money," and walk away, rather than, "Shit, I need to sell for whatever reason you need to sell." That's the worst place to be in. So yeah, we were, in my mind, we weren't, apart from the time I told you about, we weren't ever actively for sale, but I was always conscious that at some point somebody might come, and actually I ended up with a drawer full of NDAs that most of which went nowhere. But yeah, I was quite comfortable with selling at any point, but only for the right price.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a great position to be in as well once you've decided and the business is in that position. Imagine a lot of business owners listening. How do you go about selling a business? This podcast is sponsored by Team Building Experiences. If you're planning a team building event, away day, or corporate event, then check out team-building-experiences.co.uk and state podcast 15 in the comments to receive 15% off your proposal.
The first thing you need to do is you actually need to prepare your business for sale. Okay, that's the first thing you need to do. And I always use the example of a house. You don't go home and say to the wife, "Oh, we're selling the house tomorrow." You go, "Right, well, we're going to sell the house. Okay, what do we need to do?" Well, the first thing we need to find out what all the other houses on our road went for. Then you'll look around the house and go, "Oh, the lounge needs painting. The bathroom looks a bit tired. We'll tart that up." And so those are the sort of things you do as a business. You start making it sellable. And, one of those is, does it run without you? Number two, is it profitable? Is it in a good position? There's no point you sell it. You wouldn't sell your house when everything's falling down. You'd sell it when you tarted it up. And the example I gave about knowing, how much the house is sold on your street for, you need to understand how your industry and how your sector values businesses and what deals look like. So if somebody came along and said, "I'll give you £1 million for your business," I don't know whether that's a good idea or not. So unless you know similar businesses have sold for 5 million, 10 million, and also how they're valued. So are they valued on EBITDA? Are they valued on revenue? Are they valued on average recurring revenue, number of clients? Different sectors have different ways of valuing businesses. So you have to understand how your business is valued, what prices are in your sector. Then you start tarting your house up, your business up. And it may be, when we sold, we were probably 1.5 people heavy in the team. But because we weren't for sale, I was sort of quite comfortable with that. If you're selling the business, somebody might resign. You might think, well, normally we'd replace them, but actually, back in my mind, we're going to be selling before the end of the year, so I won't replace them. Then we look more profitable. So you're all, and then the other thing is you need to, and we fell foul of this. You need to understand the data that potential purchasers will want to see, because what you need to do as a seller is to make your sale as safe as possible for the buyer. There's no skeletons in the cupboard. There's no potential liabilities. Even silly things like, have you got contracts for everybody? You've got contracts for suppliers, contracts for clients, contract for staff. If somebody says to you, you've probably, I've no idea, but you've probably got staff whose contracts you haven't updated since they joined, and their salaries have changed. Maybe work from home wasn't a thing when they joined. Maybe you've increased their bonuses. Maybe you've changed their responsibilities. So all those sort of things, you need all your ducks in, and this is part of the sort of decorating your house thing. You need all those things in a row, because a buyer will ask for those sort of things. So, have you got 3 years accounts? Can you give me, your top 100 clients and how much they spent in the last 3 years? All these sorts of things are part of that tarting the house up. So when somebody comes along, and also it's a reassurance for the buyer, they go, "Oh, actually, this is a really organized business because he's got all these ducks in a row. He's got all these bits of paper. He's got these, even things like passwords. I'm sure you've got team members who've got bits of software they use and you don't know what their passwords are to log in. So when you sell your business and they go, "Oh, Daniel, can you give me a list of all the passwords of all the bits of software you've got?" It's like, oh shit. So there's lots and lots of things you need to get ready before you even get anywhere near how much you're going to sell for and who's potentially going to buy us. And that's the other thing as well. You need to then think, okay, who potentially might buy us? Because then you can mold the business to look nicer for your potential buyer. So if somebody in your industry comes and buys your business, then yeah, it's probably straightforward. They understand the systems, the processes, that sort of thing. If somebody's wanting to get into your sector and buy your business as first time in, your product that you're selling to them looks very different to somebody who's a competitor, for example. So there's lots and lots and lots of different things to consider.
I love the analogy of a house, because it makes complete sense. Not, you do when you go to sell your house, you go, well, this needs changing, as in like we need to make this look better, and we need to make this, not cover that up, but we need to make sure that it's when someone comes to view it, it's a place that they can envisage moving in.
Yep.
And that's what selling a business is, isn't it? Really, like this person's or company's going to move in. They need to make sure what they're buying is actually something that they want to move into.
Yeah. And is easy to take over running, which is where you get into things like number twos, management teams, that sort of thing. And does it run without Daniel?
Yeah. And how when you built your management team, I'm assuming was that the plan, so that the management team would then easily be able to be utilised by the company that came in to take over?
That wasn't the plan. The plan was to get a number two in so I could step away and spend less time in the business. The offshoot of that is I've then created a business that doesn't need me in it and can just be, ported to somebody else. But yeah, if you're thinking of buying, you need to keep saying it, but that business needs to run without you. And until it does, it's not sellable. And depending on the size of the business, depends on the size of the management team and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, I think there's some fantastic points in there, and we could probably dedicate a whole podcast actually to selling a business, but we probably move to the actual sale of which bingo, if that's all right. I'm just thinking, so you've basically got to the point where you've got a number two, you've got a team in place, you're able to leave, you're out of the business. How did you just go and put yourself on the market, or what did you do?
No, so we were part of the online gaming sector. Because if you go right back to my start, it's very easy to build a website, put some ads on, and off you go. You're in the game. So the industry had over the years had lots and lots of small players, and by the time we sold, there were a number of bigger players who were eating everybody else up. So competitors of ours, people we knew, were getting bought out on a regular basis. So we got approached by one of these aggregators, and they said, we're interested. Are you for sale? I said the same thing. Give me enough money and I'll sell. They said, well, how much do you want? I gave them what I thought was a bit stupid number, and they said, yeah, okay, we'd be up for it. So I'm like, oh, bloody hell! So we went down to London and met them. And the actual deal was, well, there's a bit of caveat here and a bit of maybe there and a bit of this, that. So it wasn't as simple as here's a bag of cash, off you go. But by that point, because we were still only, the owners were myself and my wife. That was it. No shareholders, no investors, nothing. So that sort of like opened our eyes a bit. We were like, oh, this is quite exciting. So what I did, because it was quite a small industry, I went back to all the other aggregators and said, look, we are not for sale, but we are talking to somebody about selling. So if you're interested, give us a shout. Long story, one of them came back and said, right, yeah, we'll do a deal. And I didn't realize at the time how fantastic our deal was, because when you sell a business, there's two aspects to it. One is how much. The second, and probably more important, is what's the structure of the deal? Like how long is it going to take to get your money? And lots of businesses get earnouts, and it's 2 or 3 years, and it's this, that, and the other. This deal, not only was it and again, I mentioned about knowing how much other deals had gone for. So we knew it was above the multiple that industry numbers were going for, but also it was 50% on day one, 25% on, day 45, another 25% on day 90, and then we were out. All cash, no paper, nothing. So the deal itself structurally was brilliant. And we did the deal over I knew the guy. We did the deal over the phone and a couple of emails. Then he went to the lawyers. And so we agreed the deal in November. We signed with the lawyers in April. That's how complicated it got. One of the things we tripped over was, because we were a privately owned company, we had no shareholders, nobody to report to. Our internal reporting systems were built for the benefit of us, as the benefit of, what levers should we pull to make the business better? They weren't reported in sort of standard industry reporting structure. So when they said, oh, have you got, this figure, this figure, this figure? And we were, well, no. So I had to then manually go back through 3 years of raw data and put together these reports that they wanted. We also had a situation where the company that bought us, whilst they were a PLC, they were based in Cyprus, and they didn't want any of our staff. Okay, so we talked about management teams. They didn't want any of our staff. They had a system they were going to plug us into. Now, in the UK, you can't do that. There's TUPE laws. So when you buy business, you buy the staff with them. So our lawyers, in effect, put together a package for our team that compensated them for loss of earnings and loss of TUPE and all that sort of thing. So what I had to do, just the way it fell, we'd been in Thailand on holiday. We came back on a Sunday night. Monday morning, we went into the lawyers and signed the bits of paper. Tuesday morning, I went into the office, called a team meeting together, and this was the hardest thing I ever did in my whole career. I had to sit in front of everybody and say, guys, we've sold the business, which wasn't a surprise in itself. It was a surprise, but because the market was quite acquisitive at the time, wasn't a big surprise. And I had to say to them, right, and you've got 3 months notice, and that's it. They don't want you. That was really, really, really difficult. I practiced that speech on the plane the whole way home from Thailand, what to say, because obviously certain legal things you have to say. And then 90 days later, that was it. And we finished, our last day was Friday the 13th of July. No, sorry, Friday the 13th of, Jeff, Friday so it's a Friday the 13th. Yeah. And that's quite quick, I mean, 4 to 6 months for your legals is probably, depending on the size of the business, is probably about right. But the fact we only had 90 days in effect working on notice was just amazing. And then we had the cash in the bank, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a great deal structure as well, because like you said, it was cash. There was you had to work in the business for a year or 2 years or anything like that. And in a way, I suppose, because the staff weren't being taken with the new company, I know it was, like you said, really hard to do, but in a way, from a conscience point of view, if the new team that had taken over were absolutely ruthless, really hard to work with, there's that side of things to think about as well. Have you stayed in touch with any of your previous colleagues?
Oh yeah. I mean, it obviously there was the shock, there were tears and all that sort of thing, and then people were angry, and then eventually after 2 or 3 days, a number of them came to my office and said, "Look, don't blame you, it's the right thing to do, but I'm really upset because I like working here," which I think was really, really nice. My number 2, Simon, I see maybe once or twice a year, keep in touch with him. My SEO guy, keep in touch with him. Project manager, play 5-a-side with him. Sales guy, keep in touch with. I keep an eye on a couple of the content people. So yeah, quite a lot of them. Obviously I'm not speaking daily, but I'm still in touch with them. Yeah, and that's nice. I like
that is nice. I mean, if you can run a business and be friends with people years later, 5 years later, that is an amazing achievement, because they must have liked you as a person as well as a boss, which is always the hardest balance to strike, I find.
Yeah.
Because it's not an easy one to be. So moving forward, business sounding board.
Yep. Okay. So it's interesting actually. You listen to podcasts, you listen to books about business and all that sort of thing, and they talk about startup and scale and exit and all that sort of thing. Nobody writes the next chapter. Like, what the hell do you do next? Okay, and it's really, really difficult. We ran our business. I ran the business for 18 years. So, one day you walk out the door and you are no longer, that identity that you have sort of built around you doesn't exist. You're just back to, not nobody, but, you're not part of that industry. Everything that people knew about you is not there anymore. So I sort of sat down and thought, well, what do I want to do? And actually, I like working with people, and initially I did a bit of mentoring. I did quite a lot of youth mentoring. I worked with Prince's Trust, worked with an organisation called Young Enterprise. I go into schools and do talks and things like that. But then somebody sat down with me and said, "Do you know what? You should be a business coach or a business mentor." And my imposter syndrome kicked in straight away. Who the hell's going to listen to me? I was just making it up as I was going along. But what happened was, sort of post-sale, a number of people who ran businesses who I knew were asking my advice. I'm doing this, what do you think? I'm doing that, what do you think? I'm thinking of selling, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And I thought, actually, people are getting benefit out of this. Maybe I should do this properly. And I thought, well, what did I need when I was running my business? What were the pain points for me? And one of the pain points for me was not having somebody to bounce things off, to get advice from, to keep me in check, to be an accountability partner, to tell me stuff that I didn't know. And looking back at my career, we had 4 different points where we had external people came to the business, and they all made a difference to the business. Yep, external consultants. So I thought, well, okay, I'll do that. And then COVID hit, and I spent, as most of us did, I spent most of it in the garden because the weather was nice, and basically sort of put this plan together and said, okay, what's my product, what's my audience, all that sort of thing, and then basically went out there and said, okay, I am the business sounding board. I sit next to, or on the shoulder of, or in the ear of the business owner, so that he or she can say, Phil, does this sound like a good idea? Or I've got this problem, I don't know how to solve it. Or I've got this opportunity, I don't know how to maximize it. Or I need somebody to be that accountability partner. And what I try and do is I try and not give people the answers, but prod them and poke them with the right questions. So what I've found is the majority of problems and opportunities and issues that the business owners I work with are all things I struggled with as well. So I can say, oh, well, when it happened in my business, we considered X, Y, and Z. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? Or have you looked at this? Or what do you think the solution is? Well, and then I can say, well, have you considered this? And they go, oh, no, I've not considered that. So I'm prodding and poking to get them to get to the right answer. Because you can't, as a business owner, you can't stand up in front of your team and go, hey, guys, I haven't got a clue what we're doing, but I think this strategy might work. Or, Dave, do you think, classic is, I'm thinking of buying the business down the road, our competitor. And you sit with your sales manager and go, hey, Mary, we're thinking of buying the guys down the road. What do you think? The first thing she's going to think is, they've got a sales manager as well. I'm going to lose my job. Therefore, no, it's not a very good idea to buy your business. So there's lots of positions you are in as a business owner that you can't speak to somebody about running the business, about the problems that are on your plate as a business owner. So that's what I do. And also, because I'm not invested, I'm not a non-exec director, I'm not on the payroll, I can say, Daniel, that's a shit idea. Because your staff won't tell you that, your solicitor won't tell you that, your accountant won't tell you that, your wife or your husband won't tell you that. But sometimes you need somebody to go, Daniel, that's crap, don't do it. Or more likely, Daniel, we tried something like that and it didn't work, so just be careful. Then you might go away and go, oh, actually, I'll reconsider this. I'll do something else. So that's what I offer to business owners out there, is that independent thinking, that opportunity to sit confidentially and go, Phil, I haven't got a fucking clue what I'm doing. Can you help me? Because you can't say that to your team. So that's what I do. That's what I do.
No, I love it. So it's basically a mix between a mentorship, a coach, and a non-exec.
Yes,
essentially,
absolutely.
All kind of wrapped into
somewhere right in the middle of there. I think the word coach, I always think, is somebody who teaches people a specific skill. So I'm not teaching a specific skill. Mentoring is often somebody who's further down the career ladder or the career path as somebody in a similar position. So yeah, it's a bit non-exec. So you're absolutely right. It's a bit of all three, but from experience, and I've been through all the pain, I've got all the scars that everybody else has got, but I can independently go, I'm looking at it just from the outside in. That's all I'm doing. And it goes back to, it's interesting, it goes back to, once I sold, when I'd been in the online gaming space for 18 years. So I'd go to an event and conference and people know who I am, and I'd speak at conferences, all that sort of stuff. I'm now parachuting myself into my local area, which is Leeds, and you go, hey guys, I'm an experienced business person, I can help you. And the first question is, who the fuck are you? Sorry, excuse me. You have to put "not made for kids" on the podcast now. Yeah. So it's and people talk about know, like, trust, and it's taken me a while to do that, because in my sort of local business area, people didn't know who I was, because I was in online gaming. I wasn't anybody on the ground locally, so it's taken me a long, long time to build up. Because again, from the other side, from a business owner's point of view, they're coming to me and they're going to bare their soul and go, Phil, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? That's a really big ask for a business owner. So people have to get to know me, get to know what I'm like, get to know how I deal with. And as with anything, you know, you go into a room and you like some people, you don't like other people. And it's, you know, it's a very personal connection. So it's a slow burn. It's taken a while to build up.
I think this moves perfectly on to, we'll dial into the sounding board, I think, in a minute in further detail, but marketing and the Leeds Business podcast. Now, I came across yourself through, it's a show called The Podcaster's Podcast.
Oh, right, okay.
And there was actually, I don't know what episode number it was, but there was a review of one of your shows. And like you do, you go, okay, I'll have a look at this show. And I've probably listened to about 4 or 5 of them now. And yeah, I think it's a really good, strong podcast. And you've had some fantastic guests. But just talking first of all about that marketing piece, obviously, and you know, building that authority in Leeds. The Leeds Business Podcast says exactly what it is on the tin. Great idea, because it's going to build that authority. And also you're in someone's ear for maybe an hour, 2 hours a week.
Absolutely.
What was the thought process behind going into podcasting?
So there were 2/3 points behind it. Number one, I'd used podcasting to market myself as a business sounding board, being as a guest on podcasts like this one. And then after a while, you think, yeah, how hard can it be to run your own podcast? Just to let everybody know, it's bloody hard. But I thought it's a great way, running my own podcast, and specifically in Leeds, fits back into that whole point about building awareness of me in the local business community. So that was the reason behind it. Then off the back of it, the aim was obviously to generate business. But also, the imposter syndrome kicking in again was a case of, well, actually, even if nobody listens, I'm getting the opportunity to spend an hour picking the business brains of loads of really, really interesting people. So even if no one listens, I mean, you know, one of the first people I had on as a guest was Linda Plant, who's the queen of mean on The Apprentice. She does the interviews at the end. Now, if I'd have rung her up and said, hey, Linda, you know, can I come sit in your office and ask you questions for an hour? She goes, oh, what the hell are you talking about? Why would I do that? If I say, I'm doing a podcast, can I interview you for an hour? She goes, yeah, of course. You know, people are, you know, they're talking about their favorite subject themselves, but also in a broader sense, they know their knowledge and wisdom and advice and expertise is being magnified through the podcast. So lots and lots of people are getting the benefit of my 1 hour with somebody like Linda. So it's not just me listening, it's all the people listening. And then in terms of marketing it, I was very, very single-minded and thought, okay, my audience is business owners in Leeds, and I'd been building that as my sort of network on LinkedIn anyway. So I've been battering LinkedIn with it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and at the same time building a database so I can email every week, say, hey, this week's guest is so and so, etc., etc. I've tried Instagram, I've tried Twitter, don't really work, so I just stick to LinkedIn.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn's great, isn't it? I mean, it's the most direct to individuals on the planet. You know, Facebook is very retail based. You know, you don't know who anyone is. LinkedIn, it gives you not only who they work for, but their position, their name, their credibility, essentially, you know, previous roles they've been in. And you're able to really drill down with the people that you'd want to work with. Now, I wanted to ask a question that you actually asked Daniel Priestley, and we'll go on to Daniel Priestley in a minute. Is what would be the first thing you would say to a business owner to improve their business?
Right. So you're asking me a question I asked Daniel Priestley, yep?
That's the one.
That's a really good question, and Daniel's answer was interesting. What I would say is, I think the first thing I would do, and this is not just blowing my own trumpet because I'm in that game, I would get an outsider in to do a SWOT analysis of your business. And not only do it with you as the business owner, and I've done this for clients and I've had it done to me, is actually get somebody in and do a SWOT analysis with each member of the team individually, confidentially, and then what happens is that the external person then comes back and says, it's not going to say, oh, he said this, she said that. It's, here are 3 or 4 general themes that are coming out of everybody in your team. Daniel doesn't let go. He's not very good at delegating. The strategy is wrong. We think we should be targeting a different market. That way, you almost get like not free, but you get a free review of your whole business and your whole strategy. And often it's the people at the coalface who see the problems and see the opportunities that you don't see as the boss. So that would be what I would do. I'd get somebody external in to do an analysis with your team and then report back to you. And as I say, I've had it done to me. I've done it for clients. So little plug, if anybody wants me to do it for them, I can do it for them. But yeah, that's what I would do.
I was just going to say that. I think that's a really, really good idea. I've actually genuinely never thought of that as an idea of getting someone external to do us. We've done SWOT analysis so many times, but it's the management doing it. We've never really gone out to the team. I don't think we've ever gone out to the team thinking about it. So the likelihood, like you say, is that they're on the front line. They know what the problems are often, and if you can bring that out and identify it, fantastic. So Daniel Priestley. So how on earth did you get him on your podcast?
Okay, so this is fantastic. So I heard Daniel Priestley on Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast. And I thought, I was driving the car at the time, and I thought, geez, this is so good. I'm going to go home and listen to it again so I can get a pad and paper to write all these ideas down. And then YouTube's algorithm threw up a guy called Ali Abdaal, also interviewing Daniel Priestley. And I thought, oh, Jesus, he's done it again. Brilliant. These ideas are brilliant. I've got to write that. And it was funny. I was sat in the gym at David Lloyd after I'd had a session, and I just banged out this post. I hate Daniel Priestley. He's given me so many brilliant business ideas. I can't rest. I'm supposed to be retired. All this sort of stuff, and just threw it out there. And for whatever reason, it went totally viral. I think it's on 45,000 views and 500 plus likes or something. It just went absolutely mental. Eventually, Daniel obviously got wind of it, commented, and I thought, hey, why not? So I invited him to come on the podcast, and he said yes, which was just amazing. Because interesting, I mean, yeah, you've mentioned the podcast. It's Leeds Business Podcast. I interviewed Leeds business owners, so it's relevant to the local area. So he's the first person I've had on who isn't from Leeds or a Leeds business owner. But hey, it's my podcast, so I can break the rules. But yeah, that was amazing.
I mean, he is very hot right now. I mean, we were talking briefly before the show started, but yeah, I've seen him live, and he's very, very good. But when I saw him live, he was up and coming, and now, in the space of about 6 months, he's really exploded. So, yeah, completely hats off to you. And I think the key thing is that the fact that he came on is going to benefit the podcast massively, and it may even shoot out opportunities for future guests as a result of Daniel coming on. But what was he like as a person?
He was really, really nice fella. Really, really nice fella. And he took the whole thing in good humor. And I'd admit to a degree I was sort of feeding him stuff so he could promote his stuff, which is, hey, that's the way it goes. But yeah, just came across as a really, really nice guy. Really nice guy. And very, very sharp. Very sharp.
I guess he's also got a lot going on as well. So to spare an hour of his time to come on as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially when you said you especially when you said you hated him to start with.
Yeah, that was the start point. And he said, it's funny actually. One of the things we talked about was building an audience. And I said, look, I'm no Kim Kardashian or David Beckham or anything like that. How do I build an audience? And you went, hey, you just written a post that's got 40,000 views. You've got an audience. So yeah, it was great. It was really great, and he was a lovely fella. And we could have gone on for another hour. But yeah, chuffed about that one.
No, definitely, it's an absolutely fantastic achievement. So who are you going to say you hate next?
That's a great. You see, the thing is, and this is what's infuriating. I write a lot of content on LinkedIn, and on this business sounding board, I know what I'm talking about. I'm thought leadership posts and all that sort of thing, and they get absolutely no traction. I whack something off sitting in the changing room of a gym, and it goes bananas. I no idea who I'll get next. I'll write, I hate Daniel O'Sullivan, and it'll get like 4 likes or something like that, and he won't. It's really, this is the beauty of marketing, isn't it? You don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and particularly online, it just has to catch a wave, and it goes all over the place.
Yeah, and that's why it's so difficult, and that's why the people that are the best in the world that's why they paid the big bucks, isn't it? Essentially.
Yep.
I've really enjoyed today, Phil. I've got one more question for you. I always ask this at the end. What advice would you give to someone trying to start a business in 2024?
I would go through the following steps. First, find a problem. Find a solution to that problem. Find an audience who are willing to pay for that solution, and ensuring your solution is better than their current solution, and ensuring that solution is a repeatable purchase, and then put a team in place to deliver it. That would be my advice.
That's fantastic. I love the repeatable business, because that's something that I've learned after about 4 or 5 years of being in an industry that wasn't a repeatable business. And every time I've started a new brand or new startup, I've always tried to focus on that repeatable business part. And I think that's one of the key elements that any business longevity is going to survive, through having that. Amazing conversation, Phil. Really enjoyed today. We've had a lot of laughs. How can people who have listened to this podcast find out more about you and your company?
Okay, so you can find out more about me at philfraser.co.uk. Don't go to philfraser.com, because that's a medieval reenactment costume company. So if you see lots of pictures of people who look like Robin Hood, you're on the wrong website. It's philfraser.co.uk. If you sign up for my newsletter, you get a free problem-solving solution for your business, totally free of charge for signing up. If you want to listen to the Leeds Business Podcast, just search Leeds Business Podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'm on there most days.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Phil, for coming on We Built This Business.
It's a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, Daniel.
No problem. We'll be back next Tuesday. Thanks, Phil.